Okay, so let's start with our first module, that is going to be listening. Even when you are going to appear for your test, listening will be the first test you are going to appear for. Now, basically, what is this listening? In listening, an audio will be provided to you. There will be an audio. You have to hear that, and accordingly, you have to write the answers for the question. So basically here they are testing your listening capability, how well you can understand, comprehend the native language. Those things they are going to check in this. Basically, listening is one of the module where easily anyone can score 8 to 9 band. Just there is one condition that you do a lot of practice, and before that you have to be aware what is the basic format, what type of questions will be asked in this, how to tackle those types of questions. So these things you have to be aware before appearing for that, and just regular practice. Regular practice is the key to score your 9 or 8 band in listening, which is easily achievable. Even a lot of my students have scored that. That's why I'm telling you whether it's your academic or general. Since for listening in academic and general, there is not any such difference when it's come to listening part. So let's begin with the listening part. So what is the test format? In listening, basically there will be 4 recordings. So let me first tell you what is the basic format. So listening is going to be for 4 sections will be there. Okay, it's divided into 4 sections. Now for every section there will be one audio. So each section is going to have its own audio. In every section there will be 10 questions. Now if we talk about whole, so 40 questions will be there. If you are going for paper based test, it's going to be for 40 minutes. That is 30-minute audio and 10 minutes to transfer your answer. If you are going for computer based test, it's going to be 32 minutes. That means 30-minute audio and 2-minute time to check your answers. Right? How it is done is, first they will give you certain gap, maybe 30-second gap will be given to you so that you can read the further question. Then they will play the audio. Then again they are going to give you a gap of 15 to 30 seconds. Then again audio for section 2 will be played. Then again a gap will be there. So that means between every section a gap will be provided to you. You have to hear carefully. If they are saying now you have 10 seconds, you can go through question number 11 to 15. Then they will say, so sometimes they divide even the sections also, like in section 2 say there is one form of question that is 11 to 15 and another is 16 to 20. So first they will give you a gap and they will ask you to go through question 11 to 15, then again they will give you the gap. So main thing is understanding, hearing it carefully, noticing what are the informations, what are the instructions that are given to you. So let's proceed further. As I've already mentioned, in this 4 recordings of native English speaker will be there. You have to listen to it and then you have to write your answers to a series of questions. So if you are going for paper based, you will have an answer sheet. If you are going for computer based, you have to type your answers or match your answer according to the instructions. Let's see what type of recording will be there. So if we talk about your section 1, this is going to be very general conversation between two people. Normally it's going to be a telephonic conversation where in the everyday social context. So generally what type of conversation you are going to hear is, maybe you are calling to reception of some hotel and you want to book a room over there, or you are calling to some college, you want to inquire about certain things. Generally in section 1 it will be very basic and very easy to understand. Even the questions are going to be pretty easy in that. But you have to be careful. Here you have to, maybe they will ask you to fill the form like name, telephone number, address, pin code. So here till the end of the sentence, like say they twist you a little bit. Say the question is asking what day should be the booking date. So the person asks, okay sir, which day you want to book the hotel for? And the person is saying, I want 10th of October. So immediately write 10th of October. But listen to the complete sentence. So I want it for 10th of October. No, wait, I have some commitment on that day. Please book it for 11th of October. So the answer is going to be 11th of October. So listen carefully. Don't be in very hurry to write the answers because they are going to trick you. they are going to manipulate you. So that's why it's very important to understand, listen, read the question, everything in the sync. If we talk about recording number 2, so recording number 2 is going to be a monologue. What is a monologue? When only one person is speaking in this, and in this generally instructions will be given to you. What type of instructions? Say when do you go to a college, they tell you how to fill the form, or say you want to go for a swimming facility and they say what are the pros, cons, what are the do's, don't, everything they are telling you. So recording 2 is going to be always one person will be, and it's going to be certain type of instructions that will be told to you in this part. If we move further and we talk about recording number 3, so recording number 3 will always be a group conversation in which 2 to 4 or 5 people will be involved. Okay, it can be any group interview, it can be any group conversation, any group discussion. Generally, people have here an educational, it's related to educational and training context. Like a university tutor and student are discussing an assignment. Say the student is doing a project on some topic, so they are discussing on the project and everything. So discussion will be there in this. So moving from section 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, the difficulty level increase. Now, how the difficulty level increases is you are not going to find exactly similar words or similar sentences, rather, it will be paraphrased or synonyms will be used in this. So, you have to be rather very careful in this part. If you move to a recording 4, so again, this is going to be a monologue. Only one person will be speaking in this, and he or she will be speaking about some academic subject. So maybe a university lecture is delivered, or maybe uh, some type of speech is there, but it will have certain academic type of information. So moving from your section 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, the questions are going to be tricky, more tricky. The pace will be little fast. So we say generally section 1 to 4, the difficulty level generally increased. Okay. Moving forward about the paper format description. So in this 4 part will be there with 10 questions each. Okay. The questions are designed so that they appear in the order. This is very important part. That here all the questions will be in the order. Like say first, second, third, fourth. So they will be speaking about first, then second, then third, then fourth. So listening from 1 to 40, all the questions are going to be in the order. All the questions follow the order in this. But yeah, definitely if you are going some matching type of questions, then that order will not be followed. But from 1 to 40, there will be chronological order that will be followed in this. The first two part deal with the situation set of everyday. So section 1 and 2 will be like everyday things that happen, like you're booking a room, booking an hotel, going to some place, getting certain type of information. So everyday situation will be there in your section 1 and 2. In part 1, there will be a conversation between two speakers. For example, a conversation about travel arrangement. So you are calling some travel agency, you want to book maybe a travel tour package, something like that. So it that type of conversation, so very basic. These things you will be able to acknowledge very well because this happens in the daily life. Part 2 will be a monologue in which you speech about local facility. So any type of instructions will be there. Once you will do a lot of practice, you will happen to understand and identify those things. Final two part deals with the situation set in the educational and the training context. Generally, section 3, which will be a group conversation, in that it will have certain education type of content, like it can be some discussion on a project, on a research. Section 4 will be a lecture, that will be some educational topic. Part 3, there is a conversation between two main speakers, for example, two university student discussion, perhaps guided by a tutor. So this type of audio will be there. In part 4, it's going to be a monologue on some academic subject. So hope you have understood what basically will be the type of audio in section 1, 2, 3, 4. That is very important. You have to be a little bit aware what type of audio is going to be there in different sections, so that accordingly you are trained on that part. Right? Now, other things about listening is very important is the recording are heard only once. You will not have any control on the recording, just you can volume up and down. But if we talk about the recordings, you cannot play, you cannot pause, you cannot rewind, you cannot re-listen it. So recording will be heard only once, and this is the key factor which is very important, and this is the pain point of student, because you have to focus on a lot of things. Same time you have to listen the audio, you have to write your answer, your focus should be on the next question also, so that you don't miss any part. That's why initially only I told you that listening required a lot of practice, because multitasking. It's not that you're listening something, then you're waiting, writing. No. Same time you have to hear, you have to write, you have to focus on the next question ahead. Right? They include a range of accents, like it will be British, Australian, New Zealand, American, Canadian. So that's why if you think you have 5 to 6 months in your hand, I will recommend you to watch some of the news, some of the podcasts without subtitles if possible. Initially, if you think you can use the subtitles, but not later on, that will definitely going to help you to catch the way they speak, what is the silent part, so that you don't do any spelling mistake. A lot of things is there. But in case you don't have much time, you just have 1 month or 2 months in your hand, just practice only listening mock test. That is more than enough. Okay. Timing will be approximately 30 minutes plus 10-minute transfer time, and number of questions is going to be 40 in this. Now, if we talk about what type of questions will be there, so generally there are different type of question: multiple choice, matching type, plan, map, diagram labeling, form, note, table, flow chart, summary, completion, sentence. So these are generally type of question that will be asked in your listening. Each question is worth of 1 mark. Sometimes what happens, say there's a multiple choice question and there is 5 options, you have to find 2 correct options, then it will be for 2 marks. So each correct answer has 1 marks. One or zero. That's the case. So correct is correct, and generally, even if you get the answer correct, if your spelling is wrong, that is one of the reason where student face problem in the listening part. Be very careful with the spelling mistakes. Listen carefully for words indicating the stage of recording you are listening. Example, like say they are saying first you are going on a trip. So firstly we will pack all those things. My next point will be that to sum up. So definitely that means this word will help you identify. This will be some 1 to 3 answers. Starting answers will be this. Next point means some middle answers. Sum up means it will be the last questions. So these keywords also help you to identify what part of question they are talking about. See, sometimes what happens, they are speaking on some topic, and it's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First answer you got, second answer you missed, and you completely become blank, and now you don't know where to start, which question. So try to catch these keywords. This can sometimes help you to identify, okay, I think they are saying to sum up, so it will be some last questions they must be talking about. Right. So these keywords also help you a lot in your listening part, and this you will be able to understand and identify only if you have done practice, because to identify you should be aware that these keywords exist, and how to use that depend on, and different person have different tricks and way of solving, and that you can identify which suits you better is when you do a lot of practice. Again and again I am emphasizing on practice, because definitely listening is 99% only practice part. 1% is awareness of what type of questions, where you can fall apart and all those things. While listening to a recording, you can keep crossing out the options that do not fit. It make it easier. This I'm going to tell you later. It's a elimination technique, and this generally helps in your multiple choice. So this I'll explain you when I'm going to explain you the multiple choice questions. If you have to mention dates in any answer, remember there are various correct way. A lot of people, a lot of students have this question: how to write a date, whether it should be April 24th, 24th April, 24 April. And that is very important part. It's not that anyone is correct. All when you read further question, you are aware. Okay, now if this face trouble in answering any question here, these things are very important. You have to leave and say even if you miss some question, just because one question you didn't understand, you have to bring your further questions, right? So you are at last of the time is when you can answer. Anytime you can remove your focus and you just keep on thinking. Maybe you miss out your 4/5 in questions where you have to write down word spelled out in recording. You need to be well aware of English alphabets, how they are pronounced. For instance, alphabet W is pronounced as W. It's not W, it's W. So pronunciation is very important. You have, that's why I told you, if you have enough time, go through podcasts and everything. If you don't have enough time, just go through the listening mock tests that are available and understand the pronunciation. Like it's never W, it's W. So there are certain type of alphabets which is pronounced differently the way we think. Native speaker pronounces in a different way. If you are taking as on paper, you are given 10 minutes to transfer your answer from listening booklet to your answer sheet once the last recording is over. So don't be in hurry to write all the answers in the answer sheet. You have 10 good amount of time, 10 good amount of minutes to transfer your answer. So while listening, write all the questions in the question paper so that your time is not wasted just moving ahead from here in the answer sheet, then again question paper, then again answer sheet. There your time is not wasted. Okay. Do not you not have this is very important part. Sometimes students practice paper-based question and they appear for computer-based and they think okay they have 10 extra minutes then they will check the spellings and everything. No. In computer-based test, no extra 10 minutes is provided. You have only 1 to 2 minutes. Just ignore that is also inconsiderable because in 2 minutes you cannot do anything. So that's why take your computer basis 30-minute test only and your paper basis 40-minute test. Okay. So this is all the basic about listening. Hopefully you have understood. In case you have any doubt, you can comment it in the comment box. Definitely you are going to get a reply on that. Now we are going to move what are different type of questions, what strategy we need to apply for that, what things we have to be careful when we are solving those questions. So first type of question and the nightmare for all the students generally in the listening is this multiple choice. In section 1 and section 2 they find it pretty easy to understand, but if it comes in section 3 they become very like they get worried if it's comes in section 3. Firstly because it's going to have more than two people in communication, so it becomes difficult when there are more people to identify the answers, right? Let's see what difficulties students face and how we can counter that. So in multiple choice task there is question followed by 3 possible answers. Test takers are required to choose one correct. Generally, all the multiple, like, our question is there. There are. It's not necessary that you are going to have only 3. Maybe 4 options are there. You have to find one. Sometimes I have noticed they also do multiple choice. Say one question is there and there are you can say 5 options and you have to find 2 correct answers. So just read the question and read the instruction carefully to identify how many questions you have to figure out in this, how many answers you have to get from that. Sometimes test taker are given a longer list of possible answers and told that they have to choose one. So here instruction plays very major role. It's very important to read the instruction. Say if you see a multiple choice and you think okay I have to find only one answer. Later you understand oh it's not one, it's 2 answers. Then you cannot do anything. You cannot come back. You cannot re-listen the audio. So that's why everything will be mentioned in that instruction. Before reading any question, above that instructions will be mentioned. That how many answers you have to figure out, how many words you have to write in this. These things you have to read carefully. Okay. What are common problems that students face in multiple choice? So when given 3 choices like above, you are likely to hear the speaker talking about all 3 options. Here the problem is, like sometimes what happens if they just speak about 1 or 2 options, it's easy to find. But the person is going to speak about each and every option. So just because you hear it mentioned does not make it correct. You must select the correct answer, not the first one you hear. Say there is one question and there are 3 options in that. You are first they started with this. So since this are talking about this option, that Don't make it correct option, or it's the first thing they are talking about. Don't make it correct. You have to listen very carefully all the answers that is there, because they are going to talk about each and every option. Right? The answers will normally come in the form of synonyms, and that is one more challenge. Like even whatever is written, they don't say even a single word from that option that is correct one. They use completely paraphrase, they use a synonym. So don't just listen for exact match. This is one of the problem with student face. They try to find whatever word or sentence is written in the option. Maybe you don't find even a single word from that option. They completely paraphrase it, right? So don't just listen for exact matches. Think about how the answer could be expressed by synonyms and paraphrasing. So mainly in section 3, exactly similar words will not be there. Even in section 1 and 2 it will not be there, but you will get certain hints from that. But in section 3 that is not going to be the case. Okay. Next problem is the three choices often look similar in meaning, and it may be difficult for you to tell the difference. So when three options are given to you, maybe all sound a little bit similar. There is very less difference in that. So look for the keywords in the different option that allow you to tell the difference. So your option will have certain keyword. So look for that keyword and then figure out what is going to be the difference in all the options present. Okay. This is not just testing your listening skills but also your reading. So if it's listening model, that don't mean they are just testing the way you listen. No, because you have to read, you have to comprehend, understand, then only you can get the correct answer. So there is much more to read in multiple choice questions. So that's why always underline the keywords that there are in the question so that you can quickly understand the difference. What I feel, when you annotate, when you underline certain thing, then it becomes easy to figure it out. So if you are going for paper based, definitely go and underline the keywords. Even if you are going for computer based, you will be provided with a notepad and pen, so you can write your keyword if you want something to write over there. Underlining, annotating make a lot of difference. You will not be missing so much information. You know which information you have to figure out. There will be certain keyword, there will be certain thing that you will be aware, okay, now I have to figure out this information. Okay, so these are the mainly problem that the student face. Now what strategy you can apply? Read the instructions. This is the first thing, and this is not only for this type of question, not only for listening, it applies for all modules: listening, reading, writing, speaking. 90% student go off topic in writing and speaking, and that's the reason they don't listen, they don't see the instruction, they don't read the question carefully. Please, again and again I'm saying, if required, read it twice, because this going to make a lot of difference. If you don't read instruction, if you don't understand, later you are going to regret. So read the instructions carefully, read the questions and identify what is actually. So after reading the instructions, start reading the question and figure out basically what they're asking for, what is the information that they're asking for, and highlight the keyword in the question. So don't jump to the options. First read the instruction, after that read the questions. Look at the different options and underline any keyword that help you tell the difference in the meaning. So figure out what are the different options. After reading the question, read the options, underline the keyword and see, rather than seeing how it's similar, figure out what is the difference in all the options so that it's easy to catch the correct answer in that case. Okay. Think of any synonyms or paraphrase you might hear. So say if they are using word government, so you can think what paraphrase may be: legislative body, law, authorities. So whatever keywords can appear in your mind, whatever synonyms, maybe something related to that will be there. Don't just stuck, okay, I have to figure out the keyword and I have to match this keyword only. No, you will not get your answer in that case. Figure out the meaning, synonyms, paraphrase version of it. It becomes easy to get the answer quickly. Predict the answer. Always, when you're reading a question, out of 3 or 4 options, there will be 1 or 2 options which look correct. Right? I'm not saying that that can be correct answer, but you can predict a little bit just by the reading the options. Okay. Next thing is, when listening, listen for any keyword and synonym. As I've already mentioned, Don't just focus on the keyword. Rather, have your mind open. Don't just see that, okay, maybe they can use the synonym, maybe they have paraphrased this thing, right? Don't write the first answer you hear. They will probably talk about more than one options. So wait until they have talked about them all and then answer. Be patient. If you figure out, okay, they are speaking about this option, that don't make it correct option. Wait till the end. They can change it anytime. So wait till the end and then only analyze which is the correct answer. Be careful with answers that are given by the speaker and then taken away. Like say if the speaker is saying that, mm, say first book published was this. So the interviewer is asking, okay, do you think this is the first book? The speaker is saying, yes, definitely it's the first book. And then later he said, oh wait, I think this is not the first book. That is the first book. So maybe they will confuse you with this type of information. First, they will say that is correct thing, but later they will change it and replace it with some other option. So listening till the end of the sentence, till the end of their talking about that topic is very important. Right? If you think an answer is correct, put a tick beside it and keep listening to make sure. So this is known as elimination technique. So basically what is elimination technique? Say a question is given to you and there are three options of that. So they are speaking about option number two, you feel it's completely wrong, just mark wrong. If they're speaking about first, you think it can be correct, partially correct, you can mark something like that. You can have your own methods of writing or identifying. Third, they are speaking, you think it's completely correct. So if you feel dicey about some question, write some hint of that this can also be the possibility. So later at the last, when you have to figure out which answer is correct, it becomes easy for you, because when they are keep on speaking and you think that later you will find the correct answer, you will not be able to recall anything. So when they are speaking about any option, make a note of it. Make whether you think it's correct or partially correct. What can be the probability? Write those things. That will make it easy to identify the correct answer in the later stage. Don't spend any more time than it's necessary. If you miss an answer, make a guess and move on. This applies for all type of question. Don't wait. If you think it's completely gone, don't just keep on thinking, oh no, this can be probability. Whatever comes in your mind is
right. Now, obviously, insurance is an important thing to consider, and our companies are able to offer very good rates in a number of different all-inclusive packages.
Sorry, could you explain a bit more?
Yes, sorry. There's really three rates according to quality of insurance cover. There's the highest comprehensive cover, which is premium rate. Then there's standard rate, and then there's economy rate. That one will only cover the cost of the contents second hand.
Oh, I've been stung before with economy insurance, so I'll go for the highest.
Mm-hmm. And can I just check, would you want home delivery or to a local depot, or would you want to pick it up at the nearest port?
The port would be fine. I've got transport that end.
Fine. And will you be paying by credit card?
Can I pay by cheque?
Talking to an official at a tourist information office. Can I help you?
Yes, I was wanting somewhere to stay for a few days, a 4 or 5-star hotel. Can you tell me something about the possibilities?
OK, right, well, there are 5 hotels that might interest you. Were you wanting a city centre location, or would you be interested in something a bit further out?
Well, I do have a car, so I could go for either.
Well, there are 2 central hotels in the range you're looking for. There's Carlton House and the Imperial. They're both near the main square, but if you've got your own transport, you might be interested in the...
You will hear a communication studies student talking to his tutor about optional courses for the next semester.
Come in. Oh, hello, Jack. Have a seat. Right. You said you wanted to see me to talk about your options next semester?
That's right. We have to decide by the end of next week. Really, I'd like to do all 5 options, but we have to choose 2, don't we?
Yes, but the choice depends on your major, to some extent. You're majoring in communication studies, aren't you?
That's right.
So, for example, the media studies option will cover quite a lot of the same area you did in the core module on mass communications this semester, the development of the media through the last 2 centuries in relation to political and social issues.
Well, that was interesting, but I've decided I'd rather do something completely new. There's a women's studies option, isn't there?
Yes, Women and Power. Again, it has a historical focus. It aims to contextualize women's studies by looking at the legal and social situation in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
So it would be useful if I intended to specialise in women's studies, but I'm not sure I do actually.
Well, it might still be useful to give you an idea of the issues involved. It's taught by Dr. Steed.
Oh, really? I'll sign up for that then. What about the option on culture and society?
That addresses the historical debate on the place of culture since the Industrial Revolution in Britain.
So a historical focus again?
Do I get the message you're not so keen on history?
Well, it's just that we seem to have done quite a lot this semester. Anyway, I'll think about that one.
If you're interested in a course focusing on current issues, there's the option on identity and popular culture. That approaches the subject through things like contemporary film, adverts, soap operas, and so on.
That sounds interesting. Can you tell me who runs it?
Well, it's normally Dr. Stevens, but he's on sabbatical next semester, so I'm not sure who will be running it. It should be decided by next week, though.
Right. Well, I might wait until then to decide. And the last option is Introduction to Cultural Theory, isn't it? I'm quite interested in that too. I was talking to one of the second-year students, and she said it was really useful. It made a lot of things fall into place.
Yes, but in fact, in your major, you'll have covered a lot of that already in Communications 102, so that might be less useful than some of the others.
Oh, I'll forget about that one then.
Now, while you're here, we could also discuss how you're getting on with your core module assigned group of people who are visiting the library.
Okay, everyone. So, here we are at the entrance to the town library. My name is Anne, and I'm the chief librarian here. And you'll usually find me at the desk just by the main entrance here. So, I'd like to tell you a bit about the way the library is organised and what you'll find where. And you should all have a plan in front of you. Well, as you see, my desk is just on your right as you go in. And opposite this, the first room on your left has an excellent collection of reference books and is also a place where people can read or study peacefully. Just beyond the librarian's desk on the right is a room where we have up-to-date periodicals such as newspapers and magazines. And this room also has a photocopier, in case you want to copy any of the articles. If you carry straight on, you'll come into a large room, and this is the main library area. There is fiction in the shelves on the left and non-fiction materials on your right, and on the shelves on the far wall there is an excellent collection of books relating to local history. We're hoping to add a section on local tourist attractions too later in the year. Through the far door in the library, just past the fiction shelves, is a seminar room, and that can be booked for meetings or talks. And next door to that is the children's library, which has a good collection of stories and picture books for the under 11s. Then there's a large room to the right of the library area. That's the multimedia collection, where you can borrow DVDs and so on. And we also have CD-ROMs you can borrow to use on your computer at home. It was originally the art collection, but that's been moved to another building. And that's about it. Oh, there's also the library office on the left of the librarian's desk. OK. Now, does anyone have any questions? Yes, thank you, sir. We'll hear a radio broadcast called Focus on the Arts. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16 on page 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Hello, and welcome to Focus on the Arts. I'm your host, Dave Green, and this is your very own local radio programme. Every Friday evening, we put the spotlight on different arts and culture facilities and look at the shows and events that are on offer in the coming week. And today, the focus is on the National Arts Centre. Now, if you don't already know it yourself, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's famous throughout the world as one of the major venues for classical music. But did you know that it's actually much more than just a place to hear concerts? The centre itself is a huge complex that caters for a great range of arts. Under a single roof it houses concert rooms, theatres, cinemas, art galleries and a wonderful public library, as well as service facilities including 3 restaurants and a bookshop. So, at any one time, the choice of entertainment there is simply enormous. So, how did they manage to build such a big arts complex right in the heart of the city? Well, the area was completely destroyed by bombs during the war in 1940. So the opportunity was taken to create a cultural centre that would be what they called the city's gift to the nation. Of course, it took a while for such a big project to get started, but it was planned in the 60s, built in the 70s, and eventually opened to the public in 1983. Ever since then, it has proved to be a great success. It's not privately owned, like many arts centres, but is still in public hands. It's run by the City Council. Both our National Symphony Orchestra and National Theatre Company were involved in the planning of the project, and they're now based there, giving regular performances every week. And as the centre is open 363 days of the year, there are plenty of performances to choose from.
Before you hear the rest of the broadcast, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 5. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
So, to give you some idea of what's on, and to help you choose from the many possibilities, we've made a selection of the star attractions. If you're interested in classical music, then we recommend you go along to the National on either Monday or Tuesday evening at 7:30 for a spectacular production of The Magic Flute, probably the most popular of all Mozart's operas. It's in the Garden Hall, and tickets start at only £8. But you'll have to be early if you want to get them that cheap. And remember, it's only on for those 2 evenings. For those more interested in the cinema, you might like to see the new Canadian film, which is showing on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. in Cinema 2. And that's called 3 Lives. It's had fantastic reviews, and tickets cost just £4.50, which is a reduction on the usual price of £5.50. So it's really good value, especially for such a great movie. But you can see the centre's main attraction at the weekend, because on Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m, they're showing a wonderful new exhibition that hasn't been seen anywhere else in Europe yet. It's a collection of Chinese art called Faces of China. That's in Gallery 1, and it has some really fascinating paintings and sculptures by leading artists from all over China. And the good news is that it's completely free, so don't miss it. So why not go along to the National Arts Centre next week for one or all of these great events? And you can always pick up a programme and check out all the other performances and exhibitions on offer, or coming soon, on almost every day of the year. Next week, we'll be looking at the new Museum of Science.
What I wanted to ask you was, did you find it hard studying with the Open University?
You mean because you're studying on your own most of the time? Well, it took me a while to get used to it. I found I needed to maintain a high level of motivation because it's so different from school. There's no one saying, "Why haven't you written your assignment yet?" and that sort of thing.
Oh, dear.
You'll learn it, Paul. Another thing was that I got very good at time management because I had to fit time for studying round a full-time job.
Well, I'm hoping to change to working part-time, so that'll help.
What makes it easier is that the degree is made up of modules, so you can take time off between them if you need to. It isn't like a traditional 3 or 4 year course where you've got to do the whole thing of it in one go.
Oh, that's good, because I'd like to spend 6 months travelling next year.
It's all right for some. Then, even though you're mostly studying at home, remember you've got tutors to help you, and from time to time there are summer schools. They usually last a week. They're great because you meet all the other people struggling with the same things as you.
Oh.
I've made some really good friends that way.
Sounds good. So how do I apply?
You will hear a woman phoning a friend to get information about a job agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, William. This is Amber. You said to phone if I wanted to get more information about the job agency you mentioned. Is now a good time?
Hi, Amber. Yes, fine. So the agency I was talking about is called Bankside. They're based in Docklands. I can tell you the address now. 497 East Side.
OK, thanks. So is there anyone in particular I should speak to there?
The agent I always deal with is called Becky Jameson.
Let me write that down. Becky
Jameson. Jameson.
Do you have her direct line?
Yes, it's in my contacts somewhere. Right, here we are. 07866 510 333. I wouldn't call her until the afternoon if I were you. She's always really busy in the morning trying to fill last-minute vacancies. She's really helpful and friendly, so I'm sure it would be worth getting in touch with her for an informal chat.
It's mainly clerical and admin jobs they deal with, isn't it?
That's right. I know you're hoping to find a full-time job in the media eventually, but Becky mostly recruits temporary staff for the finance sector, which will look good on your CV, and generally pays better too.
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because I don't have much office experience.
I wouldn't worry. They'll probably start you as a receptionist or something like that. So what's important for that kind of job isn't so much having business skills or knowing lots of different computer systems, it's communication that really matters, so you'd be fine there. And you'll pick up office skills really quickly on the job. It's not that complicated.
Okay, good. So how long do people generally need temporary staff for? It would be great if I could get something lasting at least a month.
That shouldn't be too difficult. But you're more likely to be offered something for a week at first, which might get extended. It's unusual to be sent somewhere for just a day or two.
Right. I've heard the pay isn't too bad. Better than working in a shop or a restaurant.
Oh, yes, definitely. The hourly rate is about £10, 11 if you're lucky.
That's pretty good. I was only expecting to get £8 or £9 an hour.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Do you want me to tell you anything about the registration process?
Yes, please. I know you have to have an interview.
The interview usually takes about an hour, and you should arrange that about a week in advance.
I suppose I should dress smartly if it's for office work. I can probably borrow a suit from Mum.
Good idea. It's better to look too smart than too casual.
Will I need to bring copies of my exam certificates or anything like that?
No, they don't need to see those, I don't think.
What about my passport?
Oh, yes, they will ask to see that.
OK.
I wouldn't get stressed about the interview, though. It's just a chance for them to build a relationship with you, so they can try and match you to a job which you'll like. So there are questions about personality that they always ask candidates, fairly basic ones, and they probably won't ask anything too difficult, like what your plans are for the future.
Hope not.
Anyway, there are lots of benefits to using an agency. For example, the interview will be useful because they'll give you feedback on your performance so you can improve next time.
And they'll have access to jobs which aren't advertised.
Exactly. Most temporary jobs aren't advertised.
And I expect finding a temporary job this way takes a lot less time. It's much easier than ringing up individual companies.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think I've covered everything.
That is the end of part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 1. You will hear a woman giving a presentation about a holiday on an island in Britain that her company organises. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good morning. My name's Erica Matthews, and I'm the owner of Matthews Island Holidays, a company set up by my parents. Thank you for coming to this presentation, in which I hope to interest you in what we have to offer. We're a small family-run company, and we believe in the importance of the personal touch. So we don't aim to compete with other companies on the number of customers. What we do is build on our many years' experience, more than almost any other rail holiday company, to ensure we provide perfect holidays in a small number of destinations, which we've got to know extremely well. I'll start with our 6-day Isle of Man holiday. This is a fascinating island in the Irish Sea, with Wales to the south, England to the east, Scotland to the north, and Northern Ireland to the west. Our holiday starts in Heysham, where your tour manager will meet you. Then you'll travel by ferry to the Isle of Man. Some people prefer to fly from Luton instead, and another popular option is to go by train to Liverpool and take a ferry from there. You have 5 nights in the hotel, and the price covers 5 breakfasts and dinners, and lunch on the 3 days when there are organised trips. Day 4 is free, and most people have lunch in a cafe or restaurant in Douglas. The price of the holiday includes the ferry to the Isle of Man, all travel on the island, the hotel, and the meals I've mentioned. Incidentally, we try to make booking our holidays as simple and fair as possible, so unlike with many companies, the price is the same whether you book 6 months in advance or at the last minute, and there's no supplement for single rooms in hotels. If you make a booking, then need to change the start date, for example because of illness, you're welcome to change to an alternative date or a different tour for a small administrative fee.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Okay, so what does the holiday consist of? Well, on day 1, you'll arrive in time for a short introduction by your tour manager, followed by dinner in the hotel. The dining room looks out at the river, close to where it flows into the harbour, and there's usually plenty of activity going on. On day 2, you'll take the coach to the small town of Peel, on the way calling in at the Tynwald exhibition. The Isle of Man isn't part of the United Kingdom, and it has its own parliament called Tynwald. It's claimed that this is the world's oldest parliament that's still functioning, and that it dates back to 979. However, the earliest surviving reference to it is from 1422, so perhaps it isn't quite as old as it claims. Day 3, we have a trip to the mountain Snaefell. This begins with a leisurely ride along the promenade in Douglas in a horse-drawn tram. Then you board an electric train which takes you to the fishing village of Laxey. From there, it's an 8-kilometre ride in the Snaefell Mountain Railway to the top. Lunch will be in the cafe, giving you spectacular views of the island. Day 4 is free for you to explore, using the pass which we'll give you. So you won't have to pay for travel on local transport or for entrance to the island's heritage sites. Or you might just want to take it easy in Douglas and perhaps do a little light shopping. The last full day, day 5, is for some people the highlight of the holiday, with a ride on the steam railway from Douglas to Port Erin. After some time to explore, a coach will take you to the headland that overlooks the Calf of Man, a small island just off the coast. From there, you continue to Castletown, which used to be the capital of the Isle of Man and its medieval castle. And on day 6, it's back to the ferry, or the airport if you flew to the island, and time to go home. Now, I'd like to tell you a bit more.
That is the end of part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 2. You will hear 2 psychology students discussing the effects of the order in which the children in a family are born. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Ed, how are you getting on with the reading for our presentation next week?
Well, okay, Ruth, but there's so much of it.
I know. I hadn't realised birth order was such a popular area of research.
But the stuff on birth order and personality is mostly unreliable. From what I've been reading, a lot of the claims about how your position in the family determines certain personality traits are just stereotypes, with no robust evidence to support them.
OK, but that's an interesting point. We could start by outlining what previous research has shown. There are studies going back over 100 years.
Yeah, so we could just run through some of the typical traits. Like the consensus seems to be that oldest children are generally less well-adjusted because they never get over the arrival of a younger sibling.
Right, but on a positive note, some studies claim that they were thought to be good at nurturing. Certainly in the past, when people had large families, they would have been expected to look after the younger ones.
There isn't such a clear picture for middle children, but one trait that a lot of the studies mention is that they are easier to get on with than older or younger siblings.
Generally eager to please and helpful, although that's certainly not accurate as far as my family goes. My middle brother was a nightmare, always causing fights and envious of whatever I had.
As I said, none of this seems to relate to my own experience. I'm the youngest in my family, and I don't recognise myself in any of the studies I've read about. I'm supposed to have been a sociable and confident child who made friends easily, but I was actually terribly shy.
Really? That's funny. There have been hundreds of studies on twins, but mostly about nurture versus nature.
There was one on personality which said that a twin is likely to be quite shy in social situations because they always have their twin around to depend on for support.
My cousins were like that when they were small. They were only interested in each other and found it hard to engage with other kids. They're fine now, though.
Only children have had a really bad press. A lot of studies have branded them as loners who think the world revolves around them because they've never had to fight for their parents' attention.
That does seem a bit harsh. One category I hadn't considered before was children with much older siblings. A couple of studies mentioned that these children grow up more quickly and are expected to do basic things for themselves, like getting dressed.
I can see how that might be true, although I expect they're sometimes the exact opposite, playing the baby role and clamouring for special treatment.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
What was the problem with most of these studies, do you think?
I think it was because, in a lot of cases, Data was collected from only one sibling per family, who rated him or herself and his or her siblings at the same time.
Some of the old research into the relationship between birth order and academic achievement has been proved to be accurate, though. Performances in intelligence tests decline slightly from the eldest child to his or her younger siblings. This has been proved in lots of recent studies.
Yes, although what many of them didn't take into consideration was family size. The more siblings there are, the likelier the family is to have a low socio-economic status, which can also account for differences between siblings in academic performance.
The oldest boy might be given more opportunities than his younger sisters, for example.
Exactly.
But the main reason for the marginally higher academic performance of oldest children is quite surprising, I think. It's not only that they benefit intellectually from extra attention at a young age, which is what I would have expected. It's that they benefit from being teachers for their younger siblings by verbalising processes.
Right. And this gives them status and confidence, which again contributes in a small way to better performance. So, would you say sibling rivalry has been a useful thing for you?
I think so. My younger brother was incredibly annoying, and we fought a lot. But I think this has made me a stronger person. I know how to defend myself. We had some terrible arguments, and I would have died rather than apologise to him. But we had to put up with each other, and most of the time we coexisted amicably enough.
Yes, my situation was pretty similar. But I don't think having two older brothers made me any less selfish. I was never prepared to let my brothers use any of my stuff.
That's perfectly normal, whereas sometimes...
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3. You will hear a student giving a presentation about a type of tree known as the eucalyptus, which is common in Australia. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today, I'm going to talk about the eucalyptus tree. This is a very common tree here in Australia, where it's also sometimes called the gum tree. First, I'm going to talk about why it's important. Then I'm going to describe some problems it faces at present. Right, well, the eucalyptus tree is an important tree for lots of reasons. For example, it gives shelter to creatures like birds and bats, and these and other species also depend on it for food, particularly the nectar from its flowers. So it supports biodiversity. It's useful to us humans too, because we can kill germs with a disinfectant made from oil extracted from eucalyptus leaves. The eucalyptus grows all over Australia, and the trees can live for up to 400 years. So it's alarming that all across the country, numbers of eucalyptus are falling because the trees are dying off prematurely. So what are the reasons for this? One possible reason is disease. As far back as the 1970s, the trees started getting a disease called Mundula yellows. The tree's leaves would gradually turn yellow, then the tree would die. It wasn't until 2004 that they found the cause of the problem was lime, or calcium hydroxide, to give it its proper chemical name, which was being used in the construction of roads. The lime was being washed away into the ground and affecting the roots of the eucalyptus trees nearby. What it was doing was preventing the trees from sucking up the iron they needed for healthy growth. When this was injected back into the affected trees, they immediately recovered. But this problem only affected a relatively small number of trees. By 2000, huge numbers of eucalyptus were dying along Australia's east coast of a disease known as bell miner-associated dieback. The bell miner is a bird, and the disease seems to be common where there are high populations of bell miners. Again, it's the leaves of the trees that are affected. What happens is that insects settle on the leaves and eat their way round them, destroying them as they go, and at the same time they secrete a solution which has sugar in it. The bell miner birds really like this solution, and in order to get as much as possible, they keep away other creatures that might try to get it. So these birds and insects flourish at the expense of other species, and eventually so much damage is done to the leaves that the tree dies. But experts say that trees can start looking sick before any sign of bell miner-associated dieback. So it looks as if the problem might have another explanation. One possibility is that it's to do with the huge bushfires that we have in Australia. A theory proposed over 40 years ago by ecologist William Jackson is that the frequency of bushfires in a particular region affects the type of vegetation that grows there. If there are very frequent bushfires in a region, this encourages grass to grow afterwards, while if the bushfires are rather less frequent, this results in the growth of eucalyptus forests. So why is this? Why do fairly frequent bushfires actually support the growth of eucalyptus? Well, one reason is that the fire stops the growth of other species which would consume water needed by eucalyptus trees. And there's another reason. If these other quick-growing species of bushes and plants are allowed to proliferate, they harm the eucalyptus in another way by affecting the composition of the soil and removing nutrients from it. So some bushfires are actually essential for the eucalyptus to survive as long as they are not too frequent. In fact, there's evidence that Australia's Indigenous people practiced regular burning of bushland for thousands of years before the arrival of the Europeans. But since Europeans arrived on the continent, the number of bushfires has been strictly controlled. Now, scientists believe that this reduced frequency of bushfires to low levels has led to what's known as dry rainforest, which seems an odd name as usually we associate tropical rainforest with wet conditions. And what's special about this type of rainforest? Well, unlike tropical rainforest, which is a rich ecosystem, this type of ecosystem is usually a simple one. It has very thick, dense vegetation, but not much variety of species. The vegetation provides lots of shade, So one species that does find it ideal is the bell myna bird, which builds its nests in the undergrowth there. But again, that's not helpful for the eucalyptus tree.
That is the end of part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 4. That is the end of the listening test. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.